Now, you all, if you have some family in Texas, now would definitely be the time to check on them, your family, your friends, especially if they live in the central area. We heard that at least 51 people are dead after a flash flooding on the Guadalupe River, and unfortunately, that number is expected to rise in and around Kerr County. Rescue teams are continuing their search, hoping to find more survivors. So far, more than 150 people, have been rescued or recovered. Meanwhile, 27 young girls are still missing from Camp Mystic, which I'm sure you're unfamiliar with. It's a Christian summer camp near the river. While authorities say that search and rescue is their number one priority, we spoke to a family who's already feeling the pain from uncertainty.
Kids wait all year to go to their safe place, which is camp. But no kids should lose a friend, and we've lost a couple.
I've been scrolling through videos and pictures on my mom's phone and watching it over and over again. Her dancing when she's excited.
Yeah.
She was so nice, and I just miss her so much.
Devastating. We learned that Governor Kemp has put out a statement addressing that high emotion that you just saw there, that a lot of people are feeling all around the state and in neighboring states as well. Governor Kemp on X said, "Our hearts are heavy this evening for the people of Texas, especially the grieving families who have lost or are still waiting to hear about their loved ones. As we remember the words of Psalm 34:18, we ask that Georgians everywhere join us in praying for all those affected by it." That was that statement from Governor Kemp on X. So now I wanted to get out to back to our reporter Kim Luffler, because she has some experience covering devastating incidents like this. Kim, I understand that previously you covered something similar in Kentucky.
Yes, I was on the ground in eastern Kentucky in 2022, the summer of 2022, for their devastating flash floods. And, I remember coming down one street and seeing almost every single home on the street completely gone. Just with the strength of the water, it wiped the homes off of their foundation. And what really kind of, was a message that I got from a lot of people talking with them on the ground there, was how quickly the water rose. I remember one woman told me her son was able to get her into her car, and in just a matter of minutes, the water was coming through their window. So that is how powerful and how quick these flash floods can be when they devastate communities like what we are seeing in Texas. But another thing that I remember from covering those floods back in 2022 was just how the community came together. I spoke with people who were, starting to board up windows for free. People who, brought, loads of donations, relief groups that were on the ground helping getting people, food and water and just everything that they need. And I know from what we've already been seeing in Texas, that's certainly the case, as well as they are still looking for people who are missing at this point, and also starting to help some folks recover. Of course, another issue that they saw in Kentucky, and certainly is going to be the case in Texas as well, is those river levels continuing to rise over the next several days. So the flood concern certainly is not over, but definitely the community is, I'm sure, going to come together in Texas as they did in Kentucky back in 2022.
Yeah, beautiful. I want to give some of the numbers here in Texas that match what you're saying about what you saw in Kentucky. Here, water rose in 26 feet in just about 45 minutes. Imagine it's kind of like a wall of water is just coming at you, and how do you react quickly enough? And I appreciate you saying too that it's really important that we are noticing that there are people who are willing to help. It's one of my favorite quotes by Mr. Rogers. He says, I don't want to butcher it, but I'm going to give you the gist of it. His mother told him that when he's seeing scary things in the news, to always look out for the helpers, because there's always going to be somebody helping. We'll be looking for those images as well, and as soon as we have them, of course, we're going to try to share them with you here on Fox Local. Kim, thank you so much for your insight. Bringing it back into studio, one of the other big stories that we have been talking about is this flooding in Central Texas. And actually, Alex, you called it yesterday. As soon as you saw it, you knew this was probably going to be one of the biggest weather stories of the weekend.
Yeah, it was, needless to say, a problem over in Texas, no doubt about it. As we continue to watch here over the next little bit, we are, yeah, there we go. A really bad situation out
Yeah.
there, to put it mildly. You're looking at some of this video here. The Guadalupe River has been a focal point, and a lot of questions have been asked about the validity of the forecast and what's going on, and what was expected versus what ended up happening. And I want to answer some of those questions for you. So first, let me take you over to this rainfall map. This is going to be the 3-day rainfall total in Central Texas. You see widespread, nearly a foot of rain in many spots across the Lone Star State. And this is not a small area, all right? If I map this out, there you go, 2.16 miles worth of about 3 to 6 inches of rain widespread, but then embedded within that, a foot plus of rain. All of this happening pretty much north and northeast of the Austin and San Antonio area. Now, one of the places that was pretty heavily impacted was Kerr County, which is where a lot of the video has been coming from. And that white dot in the middle of your screen is where the summer camp was. That was right there along the Guadalupe River. And unfortunately, that's one of the spots that saw about a foot of rain.
Now, Alex, thank you for mentioning the camp, because we heard from a family a little earlier in the show. They were absolutely devastated.
Yep.
I believe that they knew somebody at the camp, and the little girl that was with them was somebody who had gone. But we also have been hearing that state leaders are getting a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
People are saying, like, why were camps and residents in the area not receiving proper warnings for the flood?
Yeah, so a lot of factors at play here
Yeah.
as we've looked at this. And let's see if we can pop back up on camera here. I quite literally went and pulled all of you got the flood watch, you got the flash flood warning, and then you got the flash flood emergencies that were issued thereafter. So the flood watch was issued Thursday at 1:18 p.m. However, you're going to see people out there saying, well, the flood watch was issued. That is true. The flood watch was issued for rainfall amounts between 1 to 3 inches, isolated 5 to 7. That's not what we just saw on that map right there,
No.
right? So that's like going to get your car serviced and it has a minor problem and then the engine blows up the next day. And that is quite literally the
Okay.
apples to apples comparison here. The flash flood warning for specifically where that summer camp was issued at 1:14 a.m.
This is Central Time, right?
Yes,
Central
1:14 Central Time for Central Kerr County, which is includes Hunt and Kerrville, which is the two areas that we've been talking about the most. That was issued until 4:15 a.m. because it says here 1 to 2 inches of rain have fallen. Additional rainfall amounts of 1 to 3 inches are possible, right? So if you take the max out of that, that's 5 inches of rain. That's still about half of what ended up happening.
Yeah.
And then the flash flood emergency was issued at 4:03 in the morning. And look, props to the National Weather Service for adjusting as needed. I'm not here to sit there and say, well, the forecast was bad, it was awful. No, in fact, I went and looked at the National Weather Service chat too. I'm pretty sure there was one meteorologist working that night.
It is a holiday weekend.
It is a holiday weekend, and he was on it. He was issuing stuff as it was happening. And at the end of the day, there were also, it's worth noting, just because it's floating out there, political undertones as to criticism. There is not a single piece of technology that was in place that is no longer there that would have changed anything about this. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just period at the end of the sentence and end it right there.
Okay. So I guess the most important part, instead of harping on, what wasn't done in advance, unless we're going to fix it for the future,
right,
is what is the response going to be now?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
And
we can be very specific about it, is how do you adjust when things are changing on the fly? That's something we do here at Fox 5 all the time, right? There needs to be backup plans in place, particularly for the morning of the 4th of July when, everybody might not be at work. It's not 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's 4 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. That's a holiday. And the other thing is just being responsive to the warnings being issued, because yes, the warnings were issued. They were not issued, hours in advance. They were issued minutes in advance, but they were still there. And the question that needs to be answered is, how do we act on that in that time constraint? And unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to be at a place in technology where this type of event is as accurately predicted as we'd like, but you've got to be able to adjust and go. At the end of the day, you also heard somebody say that this is one of the most flash flood prone areas in the country.
Yeah, we also talked about the fact that there are hills in the area. It's called
hill country in Texas. Yeah. So
another thing that I was looking at, I read that forecasters are saying there could still be a chance for flooding today.
So it's after an event like this, it is super easy to see flooding again, right? Because the ground, what ended up happening, the reason why the flooding was so bad to start is that that area had been in a drought for a long period of time. When you're in a drought and your soil is very dry, that soil does not absorb moisture quickly, which means it runs off faster. So you get that flooding to develop earlier. Well, after that water sits on it for a while, which is what's happened after the flooding, then it absorbs all the moisture, then it's full and it can't absorb anymore. So a thunderstorm that might bring, 2 inches of rain, while that might not have been a problem a week ago, when your ground is completely saturated, that's going to be a problem, and it's going to be in these same areas. Now, that's not to say right over Kerrville you're going to get 2 inches of rain today. It's more broadly saying that in central Texas there will be rain through the afternoon, and the flash flood guidance, which means the amount of rain it takes to see flash flooding, is very low.
Okay. Now, another question that I have for you specifically, in other storms that we have seen, I know that you have a group of maybe your network or other colleagues in weather. Have you gotten to speak to anybody in Texas?
Well, so it's funny you ask. I have not talked to anybody directly, but what you're referencing is the big chat room
Yes.
that and so I have been watching what people are saying. The general takeaway from the meteorologist in those areas is basically, with a couple of exceptions, I have to say, is basically what I just said of like, okay, this is rapid response to what is happening. It's what we call nowcasting. It's what we look at what's going on right now and make adjustments as to what's going on. I don't think anybody has had the time over there yet to do a deep dive into the specifics of the events, but that's certainly to come here over the course of the next couple of days.
Okay, so I guess we will be keeping our eye on it, and hopefully we'll be able to bring you guys more information. This was perfect insight. Thank you very, very much for joining us.